At 1:45 a.m. Moscow time, the deep tranquility of the Russian capital was violently interrupted. The initial distant thuds of air defense systems activating were swiftly followed by the piercing wail of air raid sirens, a sound that has become an increasingly frequent, yet perpetually jarring, feature of life in Moscow. Official channels, which for months had portrayed the war as a distant and controlled special military operation, were forced to acknowledge the immediate reality. The mayor of Moscow, Sergei Sobyanin, issued a public statement via his Telegram channel, confirming that the city was enduring a significant Ukrainian drone attack. His initial report cited that at least 10 distinct explosions had been registered across various districts, a clear indication of a multi-pronged and coordinated assault aimed at sowing chaos and striking targets of value within the political and economic heart of the Russian Federation. This attack is a critical kinetic component of a far broader, multi-domain pressure campaign that can be most accurately described as a modern siege. Unlike the sieges of antiquity, which relied on physical encirclement to starve a city into submission, this 21st century evolution of warfare targets a state's entire nervous system. It is a strategy built on 3 pillars. First, the kinetic pillar, represented by these long-range strikes using sophisticated unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, to degrade military, industrial, and logistical infrastructure. Second, the economic pillar, a comprehensive and suffocating sanctions regime designed to cut off access to technology, finance, and critical components. Third, the logistical pillar, which involves the methodical disruption of supply chains, with a particular focus on the energy sector that fuels both the Russian war machine and its domestic economy. The ultimate objective is not just physical attrition, but the induction of systemic paralysis and profound psychological exhaustion within the Russian state and its populace. Subsequently, at 2:10 a.m., as the scale of the attack became clear, Russian aviation authorities enacted the Carpet Plan. This is a maximum level security protocol that mandates the immediate and total closure of all civilian airspace over the Moscow Oblast. The implementation of this plan had an instantaneous and cascading effect. All departing flights from the city's 3 major international airports, Vnukovo, Domodedovo, and Sheremetyevo, were grounded on the tarmac. All inbound aircraft, some already on their final approach, were abruptly rerouted to alternate airfields in cities like St. Petersburg or Nizhny Novgorod, hundreds of kilometers away. This defensive measure, while a standard procedure, effectively transforms the capital into a temporary island, severing its primary connection to the outside world and causing immense disruption not only to passenger travel but also to critical air cargo, further straining an already beleaguered economy. By 2:25 a.m., a deeply alarming incident unfolded in the skies over the city, providing a stark illustration of the immense strain on Moscow's vaunted, multi-layered air defense network. A civilian passenger jet, having been caught in the airspace at the moment the Carpet Plan was activated, was denied permission to land. Instead of being immediately diverted, it was instructed by overwhelmed air traffic controllers to enter a holding pattern directly over the densely populated metropolitan area. Flight tracking data and amateur video quickly confirmed the airliner was maintaining a terrifyingly low altitude, flying just above residential high-rises at an estimated height of only 10 to 12 stories. Aviation and defense analysts assessed this highly dangerous maneuver was a desperate measure of last resort by Russian air defense crews. It suggests a critical failure or lack of confidence in their own identification friend or foe, IFF systems. IFF technology is designed to send and receive electronic signals to differentiate between allied and hostile aircraft, forcing the airliner to fly below the minimum engagement envelope of their own surface-to-air missile systems, like the Pantsir S-1 or S-400, was likely the only way operators could guarantee they would not accidentally shoot it down while targeting the smaller, slower-moving Ukrainian drones. This fear is well-founded, given the Russian military's history of catastrophic friendly fire incidents, including the downing of an Azerbaijani civilian aircraft in late 2024. The incident reveals a systemic crisis within the capital's air defense, a network that is either technologically deficient, poorly integrated, or simply overwhelmed by the complexity and frequency of modern drone warfare. Around 3 a.m., as the sound of explosions subsided, the digital battlefront came alive. Geolocated footage began to proliferate on social media platforms, showing a fixed-wing UAV, consistent with Ukrainian Beaver long-range models, cruising through the night sky moments before impact. Another video, filmed from a distant apartment window, captured a large, bright orange fireball, followed by a billowing column of black smoke, confirming a successful strike on an unknown target. However, a comprehensive assessment of the damage was, and remains, nearly impossible. This is a direct consequence of a new federal law, rushed into effect just 4 days prior to the attack, which criminalizes the sharing of any photos, videos, or even eyewitness accounts related to Ukrainian strikes within Russian territory. This draconian censorship measure is a clear attempt by the Kremlin to create an information vacuum, preventing the Russian public and the world from seeing the evidence of their strategic failures and the growing vulnerability of the homeland. This kinetic assault is merely the most visible element of the siege. For weeks, the logistical pillar of the strategy has been tightening its grip. On the critical M10 highway, the economic artery connecting Moscow and St. Petersburg, massive queues of vehicles have become a daily reality at fuel stations. This is a direct, calculated result of Ukraine's relentless drone campaign against Russia's oil refining infrastructure, with strikes successfully hitting major facilities in Ryazan, Nizhny Novgorod, and Tuapse. The cumulative damage has significantly reduced Russia's output of gasoline and diesel, creating domestic shortages that are now crippling supply chains and impacting ordinary citizens in the two cities the Kremlin cares most about. Simultaneously, the economic pillar is exerting unbearable pressure. Facing an inability to service its fleet of Western-built aircraft, the Russian government has made a formal, and what many see as a humiliating, appeal to the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. Citing grave concerns for passenger safety, Russia is begging for sanctions relief to allow it to import certified spare parts for its Boeing and Airbus planes. For months, Russian airlines have resorted to cannibalizing their own fleets, stripping components from grounded planes to keep others flying, a practice that is unsustainable and inherently unsafe. This desperate plea was sharply analyzed by General Ben Hodges, the former commanding general of United States Army Europe. He described the appeal as irrefutable proof that the sanctions are working, pushing Russia's high-tech sectors to the breaking point. He stressed, however, that enforcement must be strengthened to close loopholes that allow critical Western components to be smuggled into Russia through third countries. On Russia's attempt to leverage civilian safety, General Hodges was blunt, stating he has exactly zero sympathy for the self-inflicted plight of a nation that prioritizes the production of cruise missiles over the maintenance of its passenger jets. He framed it as a stark guns versus butter choice, where the Kremlin has unequivocally chosen guns, sacrificing the well-being of its own citizens to fuel its aggression abroad. This multi-front assault on Russia's stability has elicited a furious reaction from its leadership. During a major press conference, President Vladimir Putin was directly challenged by BBC correspondent Steve Rosenberg on the stark contradiction between his rhetoric of ensuring Russia's security and the reality of drones attacking its capital. In a visibly angered response, President Putin launched into a lengthy tirade, defending the invasion as a preemptive and necessary war for Russia's very sovereignty. He repeated a well-worn narrative of grievance, accusing NATO of breaking promises with its eastward expansion and of orchestrating a state coup in Ukraine in 2014 to turn it into an anti-Russia staging ground. This narrative, which paints Russia as a besieged fortress defending itself against an aggressive West, is the foundational myth of his regime. It is crucial for justifying the immense costs of the war to the domestic population. Yet the credibility of this narrative is disintegrating with every air raid siren that sounds over Moscow, and with every citizen who finds their local fuel pump has run dry. The modern siege is relentlessly turning the Kremlin's distant war into a grim daily reality for the Russian people. We are witnessing history unfold, and understanding these complex events is more important than ever. If you value this kind of detailed, fact-based analysis and want to stay informed on the strategic realities of the conflict, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support allows us to continue bringing you in-depth reports that cut through the noise. Click the subscribe button and enable notifications so you never miss an update.